Noticing the time of 7:30 in the presence now of a quorum, I now call the Finance Committee to order. First item would be public comments. And there is no one stepping to the microphone. So I want to just do a quick debrief on the DPW joint meeting that we had last night with the Select Board at ActonTV at 7 o'clock. And I personally don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we talked about it last night for 2 hours. But I thought that from an objective standpoint, we had both sides of commentary on what I believed were the most common discussed items when this project was presented last time, and correct or incorrect, or however the comments were perceived. I think both sides of the pros and the cons were presented for all items, and I think if someone is going through that, listening to that, I think it'd be very helpful to have in your hand. The Select Board had distributed the Arrow Street presentation, which has the 5 scenarios on it. I would suggest if you listen to that, to skim through those and then listen to the session, and then the additional items that were presented were to do nothing, were to use Conant as a mixed use for staff, for DPW, and for a senior center, buying or leasing a property, using another option was using existing town property just for staff, and then the final option included looking at outsourcing some of the services that are currently being done at the DPW. So there's comments on all of them. I'm going to pause there in case anybody wants to talk about this and additionally from last night, or we can just move on. Go ahead, Greg.
An incredibly brief comment. I actually ran into somebody today who had watched it on ActonTV. No, it wasn't you. And it wasn't a member of the other board that was in the room. It was like somebody else.
Well, was it positive feedback or negative?
It was positive. And what was positive about it was that we took a 360-degree view of the issue, and it reminded me that so often we tend to, particularly when we're going to be dealing with lots of multiple versions of things, hone in and hone in and hone in and on, this is what we're trying to decide now. Most people in town are catching up to us. And they found the fact that we literally looked at everything, including do nothing, and found that our conversation about Conant was something they hadn't thought about before, was insightful, and it was like, okay, so sometimes going back to basics and covering all the pros and cons brings in a voter who otherwise would be mystified by, what is it you guys are talking about? What's this jargon? Why are you so focused? Well, how come you didn't think about these alternatives? So it was a positive feedback.
Well, that's good to hear that was good. Unless there's any other comments, I'm gonna keep moving. All right. So I actually want to go to liaison reports, and I want to talk to the liaisons to the schools and have you folks give us some updates so that we can kind of zero in on that. And then I want to talk about, after they talk about schools, I want to talk about the ALG model. I updated one of the point of view slides to include the numbers that were distributed this afternoon, and I do have an issue with the numbers. And I can discuss that. And if we run out of time, we don't have to talk about it. I can bring it up at ALG, but I want to really spend time on the schools, and I don't know, yourself or Christy, whoever wants to lead off, and we can go kind of zero in on that.
I did not make it to the AB Forward meeting, so I'd love if you could start with that.
The discussion of 10 options last night pales in comparison to the 13 options that the AB Forward people have been processing through. And their process is fairly unique, but it probably from this board's, this committee's point of view is worth putting all of this in a context, is we're here because of what Steve keeps talking about is we've got costs going this way, we've got revenues going that way, something's got to give. And what's fascinating is to watch the school committee wrestle with that. They did a number of things that I think we should acknowledge somehow, and we may want to borrow somewhere down the road. They not only talked to more than 2,000 stakeholders, which is a bigger number than I've seen before. They did a survey and got over 1,540 survey responses, which is a bigger number than I've ever seen before. They did 3 community forums. We did 2 listening sessions last year. They got 575 people to their 3 meetings, which is more than we saw last year. And they did a whole new series of what they called focus groups, and I was in one of those. So they were gathering information and listening to the community at a level and intensity that I haven't seen before. Then they started whittling down the process. And they went from the 13 options. They knocked off a number of them in a round 2 weeks ago. The most significant option they knocked off was option 1, which was a status quo, which was, I think, significant, that nobody was going to argue that let's just pretend nothing is going on. At their most recent meeting, which was last Tuesday, in the storm, if we all remember the storm, they whittled it down to 4. And I'll go through each one of the 4 because it's significant in the sense that they are not 4 that are similar. They are 4 that are very different. But in all 4 options, the Conant School Building will be closed. So the 4 remaining options that are still on the table still all have Conant closing as a building. The school, and they use different language about buildings and schools, the school may find a new home in some of the other options, but the building is no longer there. And again, if you think about this, going from 4 buildings for schools in our regional elementary system, we're not counting the junior high and the high, down to 3 is pretty significant. But what that also means is that no matter what they do, they're going to be moving about 450 kids next year. Now, of the ones that are left, and if you need the numbers, they are numbers 3.2 and 4 and 5.2 and 6, and that's the jargon we can all get lost in. What's worth noting is that the first 2, there are some who will describe it as the traditional approach, and there was a good deal of debate about that's pejorative. Why don't you just call it the current approach? So anyhow, but it basically will be the one that is most familiar to people who believe in choice and open enrollment and the kind of things that we've had in this community for the last 40 years. The next 2 options, and again, they are called the innovative options, and there was dispute over, that's pejorative. And so, maybe it's just different from the what we're doing now set of options. They're looking at configuring what they're doing in the remaining 3 buildings in new ways. And again, that, if you are a parent in the system, that means, what do you mean new ways? And so that's part of what they are working at defining in their next couple of meetings. I can send you information. I sent all of you information. The problem is there's way too much information. So one of the things that Christy and I are working on is a synopsis so that you've got a cheat sheet that says, okay, I get it. And we should have that for you by our next meeting. But here are the core trade-offs. For the Finance Committee, what we will want to know is if those last 2 options, no matter what you call them, innovative, new, different, you call it, they're the ones with the higher projected savings. And if you look at the, again, whether you call them traditional or you call them whatever, they are the ones that maintain the system that we have now as much as possible, which means they have lower projected savings. Yes?
On the 5.2 and 6.
Yep.
However we're going to describe them. My impression of looking at this material, and I want you to correct me or say that I'm incorrect, is that the savings, the reason why the savings is higher is because there's going to be they're going to be able to leverage the specialty teachers over, by keeping them kind of in one building. So I think, I'm not sure.
That's the detail to be named later that we should see in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, but is the driving reason for the savings that they are going to be able to, to stop the driving between one building and the other, and so that a teacher, let's say, I don't know if this is even right, let's say an art teacher who was originally teaching in 4 different schools, which I'm sure this is wrong, but they would, instead of driving from one school.
Scott, can you actually stop there? Because you're going to put misinformation
You're
out
right,
there.
Christie. I already know I'm talking wrong. Could you just say it better for me?
So the 2 most cost-saving options, let the school be flexible around staff. It means that you can have the most specialists in the building, and they can most flexibly work with the students. It standardizes the times. So if you share specialists across buildings, then those schedules need to be synced, et cetera. They've been trying not to do that. The old system before last year, they didn't do that. The previous consultant said, you can do better by having a flexibility that allows you to bring kids in based on what they need to work on, rather than on what grade band they are. Because you could have 3rd graders working on a bunch of different levels of reading. So if you can be like, okay, all the kids who need this sort of help. Having the schools in a building, whether it's one larger school or 2 schools, as we have with the twin buildings, share specialists saves a lot of money. It is both more efficient and saves money. The advantage, as I understood it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is the options that have lots of the same grade in one school, either it's because 2 schools are combined into one school sort of thing, or where it's just a school is the grade banded, means that you can grow and shrink much more dynamically your staff, because right now you would have to do such, in a school with 3 classroom sections in 3rd grade, you can't change class sizes much. You cannot get rid of a class. You'd have to bump the other 2 up by that class's size to cut back on the teacher. You have much more flexibility with that to respond to demographic changes if you have just a school of more students per grade. And it's staff savings It is my understanding, really. It's with specialists using them most efficiently, which also can be savings, and for teachers, just being able to minimize them or use them
Yeah,
most efficiently.
and the actual numbers are coming, but probably won't be even presented to the school committee until next Thursday. So by narrowing down to 4, that enables them to then do the next round of, okay, what is the finance for these 4 options? The key dates then are December 18th, which is the school committee, and they received the report this past Thursday. There was an initial effort to reduce the 4 options down to 2, but that drew such controversy that the amendment, or the motion was pulled, because everybody on the school committee who hadn't been on the AB forward process wanted time to digest this. So even the school committee is coming up to speed in some of this. They have promised the community that there will be a public hearing on January 8th. And therefore, the final vote by the school committee on one of these 4 options is now scheduled for January 22nd, which is why that impacted our planning for the point of view. So Christy and I have been trying to work on something that outlines that so that we all have very clear set of, okay, here's the timetable, here are the options. We don't have all the detail, but we at least know the buckets that they're now down into considering. And I just read from a PowerPoint that I will share. But not now, because I don't think I have Wi-Fi.
And the primary, the other, so not financial, but the other primary difference between 3.2 and 4 and 5.2 and 6 is the, like the schools as they've been, like Conant being in Merriam and McCarthy Town and all these schools, the way they've been, like however you want to describe them, they would be different because you would be having, at least in one of these scenarios, you're banding grades. Are in 5 and 6 both banding the grades together, or is it just, are they slightly different?
I believe 5 is where you have effectively 2 mega schools. That's how I view it. You
Yeah.
have, within one of the twin buildings, you have a lower elementary and an upper elementary, but they're in the same building. So like your 3rd grader who becomes upper elementary still can see all of their teachers, their kindergarten teacher and stuff. So they have that advantage of, even though it's a transition, transitions are really big in the discussion right now, because educational evidence shows that fewer transitions are better for kids. We know, change is hard.
Yeah.
So this makes it better, and from what I'm seeing, that strikes a good balance. The other option is, it's a new school every, I think it was 6, is Blanchard has pre-K and kindergarten, and then,
Those details, even the school committee was asking questions on, so my guess is that comes in the next round.
yeah,
And
there was a lot of pushback from Boxborough of wanting to have a full elementary school there. So we'll see. It's going to be a question, I think largely what the 2 groups come down to is, do we do some sort of separation by grades? Or do we merge Conant into somewhere else, merge 2 of the smaller schools, but maintain these individual school identities? Or do we make up new identities
right.
for the different schools?
And there were parents who spoke, I'm going to say more than a dozen of them at the Thursday meeting. And this may not be doing them justice, but I would say there were Conant parents, there were Merriam parents, and there were McCarthy Town parents. And I think basically what I heard from the 3 sets of parents is, our community is more than a school, it's more than a building. We opted into this because this is what we want, and if we go into a blender, what do we get? So there's a whole set of related questions that go beyond just building capacity, and, but they've made the hard decisions to reduce the building capacity from 4 to 3. And now they're trying to, if I may be permitted one analogy, it's maybe a strained analogy, but it's a financial analogy. They're trying to achieve the equivalent of a soft landing. They are doing a very difficult set of changes to the way things have been done in a way that keeps the the academic performance high. And that's an interesting balancing act. That is a hard needle to thread. So that's my last metaphor.
All right. Ask your question, Ron, before I say what I'm going to say.
Greg, during that, did they mention anything about the teachers, the current teachers at Conant, and what would happen there? I mean, because that would be obviously something that's very important as well. You know, you're dealing with people's livelihoods, and you're also going to say, hey, well, your job's gone, you know, I mean, it's nothing to be gone into lightly.
Yeah, there were no personnel announcements that were made. They were receiving 4 options. I think what you can basically understand is that everybody is walking on eggshells. But what appeared to be, each member of the school committee was asked a set of questions. And so this is like trying to interpret where they headed here. One set of questions from one of the school committee members was about staff. And it's clear that that's, quote, in the next phase of discussion. So nothing like everybody from Conant, you're out of work. They're not trying to close down the school or fire the teachers. What they're trying to do is close the building and then take the teachers and the students, and then it becomes a question, and then what do you do? Do you merge them? Do you relocate them to a different building? How do you deal with that? And that is why we don't have answers yet, and why these answers are not necessarily, oh, it's clear what they have to do next. It's like there's a lot of ground to cover.
And it's really not clear. Like, Conant is losing their building. They're talking about Merriam because it has the lowest enrollment. Any one of the schools we have has, at some point in their demographics, in their various levels in some topic, is the best. There is no one actual best school in town. I mean, apart from Blanchard's not getting touched as much as it cannot be touched because of the hometown agreement. So you heard about Conant, Merriam, and McCarthy Town because those are the 3 currently in discussion. But until the school committee chooses what direction we're going to go, it's not at all clear what implications on staffing would be or where that staff would come from.
I have a question. I know, my understanding was the difference between 5.1 and 5.2 was that 5.2 kept Blanchard intact, but that either option could involve having like all of the K through 3 at the boardwalk and all of the 4 through 6 at Merriam. Is that still on the table? No. Oh, that's too bad, 'cause that's what gives them the most flexibility.
One of the 5s went away, and the 5, and I think it's 5.2 is the one that's left. So the answer is 5.1 is the one that went away. That's the full grade banding option. It was rejected as impractical due to the high number of student transitions required. What, if you want, we can go into that.
People move, families move, you get military families. I went to 2 elementary schools and 2 high schools.
They don't move every 3 years, which is what this would be.
Some people do, that's what I'm saying.
But it's not everyone in town.
But I'm just saying, like, I think the people that are having the harder time with the transitions are the parents.
That item got pulled off the list, and the item that is left on the list is 5.2, which reconfigures the district more broadly through grade banding or creating larger schools. And so those are the four options that are still on the table.
Am I good? Microphone? Sorry, so good. When I think about this, and I think about what our objective is our objective is to inform in town meeting about financial impacts. And this doesn't feel like, I mean, realistically, that granted, they have deadlines and timelines, but I don't know, really what the final number is going to be when they come up, when they finally feel like they have what they feel is strongly about. I think what we could do, we could start with the existing projections from the schools, and we could do a scenario analysis, take average salaries, and we have some numbers on, I think the savings on not using Conant, I think it was like $100,000 a year or something. It wasn't a lot of money. But we've heard that Conant would probably be open for at least another year because they would have to have transition period. So you wouldn't take that savings for until year 2. But maybe we could model out a couple different scenarios and try to come back into what would make sense financially for real savings, so that we could maybe, when we get to when they come up with their numbers, maybe we have something that we can line up against it and say, okay, we looked at this and realistically, based on modeling that we've done in these scenarios, we feel like there should be, I don't know, X dollars of savings on an annual basis after there is, a final decision on what's done. And because of that and the existing school budget, that means the shortfall is going to be X. And then we have to figure out how to cover that shortfall some way, whether it's, it's offset someplace else, or, we have an ability as a committee to actually talk about the financials, because I don't want to wait until a day before town meeting to get a final decision and then have to digest all this stuff. So I think we could do some scenario analysis. Greg?
Yeah, and we're not the only player in that. They're already preparing an A and B budget for Boxborough. So they've already made that commitment. Boxborough's already planning for that. And so I think what we're going to see is by the end of January, those numbers will have been baked into their budget, at least from Boxborough's point of view, and very much then from our point of view. They're not going to have a whole lot of wiggle room after that point.
All right, so just it's a high-level thought, since Christie and Greg are going to come back with kind of an executive summary, probably at our next meeting. Does it make sense for us to then take that executive summary, maybe come up with 4 or 5 different scenarios, financial scenarios, and then, maybe farm it out to everybody here, and we kind of just work them out as projections, and then, asterisk all the assumptions, and then have something as a baseline to look at. I'm just throwing it out as a thought, because I just don't like having a big thing coming and not doing any advanced work for it.
The ALG meeting is when, Thursday? I got to believe that you're probably closer to getting numbers than I am. I'm not going to get numbers until next Thursday. So my guess is you're probably in a better position to get ballparks even if they're rough ballparks, sooner than Christie or I.
We have nothing that we could base anything on. I mean, what it comes down to is staffing, and we don't know what sort of changes they're going to make outside of AB Forward. Even if they have an AB Forward plan and the timeline for it, they're going to make other changes too. They're just going to need to, because as they said, AB Forward isn't going to fix everything.
Steve, so Chrissy, what would your suggestion be? Not to do a scenario analysis?
Correct, I'd wait.
Just wait until they have a final,
Not final, but
but like,
early January, they're going to have, it's early January, right? They're going to have initial budget.
They'll have a public hearing, and then their vote is They have the public hearing in early January, and then they have the final vote of the school committee scheduled for late January.
But I think what Scott, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to get down in the weeds. Is there any difference has anybody calculated a difference between these four options in terms of one-time costs? And is there any sense of where the one-time money is going to come from?
What we have are the slides from the consultant that he presented back in a couple months ago that had a little red, green, and yellow gauge, if you recall, that basically said probably more savings here, less savings there, and there were no numbers beyond that rough estimate.
I think actually the packet for one of the school committee meetings that I didn't dig into had an appendix that explained all those things, which I have just remembered now that you've talked about it. The data might be there.
So Scott, I think the scenario analysis you're talking about is between these four, and by the end of January, they're going to be down to one. So you want to do something before they make their final decision.
that was kind of like what I was thinking, is so that, and I know it'll be a swag, but just, I don't know, I just feel like we should be working on it as opposed to waiting, but if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
We get zero say
I know we did.
in what they pick, so we could put a lot of time and energy into it. They're going to pick what they think is the most important balance of student teaching, all of that versus finances. So no amount of us standing up there saying, but this is the best financial option is going to sway.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I vaguely remember that appendix that you were mentioning with the red, green, and yellow, but I thought it was more like verb. So are you saying that even the, let's say it's like 5.2, one of the green ones, that isn't going to solve the shortfall?
By themselves, AB Forward is not going to fix next year's budget. It is aiming to fix the trajectory of the budgets.
Next year.
But next year, it's not going to do it.
But it will impact next year's budget adversely. If they're going to implement this thing next summer, there's going to be just physical costs of moving stuff and people, again, where's the money going to come from? I envision this is, as far as town meeting goes, this is just going to be, the assessment's going to be baked into one of these scenarios. It'll be an up or down vote on the whole thing, not a specific vote on this plan. So it's just going to be a single up or down vote on the school assessment. But yet, and maybe this is a good topic for Thursday's ALG, is the 27 budget's going to have some money in it to do some of this work.
Well, the scenario that I would like to know more about is if Boxborough votes no on an override, what does that do to the budget? And this is maybe the situation where the tail wags the dog, but this may be the situation where Boxborough will determine what budget we see.
Which we did last year and maybe the year before also.
Didn't they mention that when we had our tri-board meeting there? And they mentioned that they have a plan are they going to come up with a A budget and a B budget? You know,
Yes.
So that's kind of where,
And it's worth noting that in the 100 people that attend these meetings, the chair of the select board is seated in the front row, right next to the chair of the finance committee. Everybody in Boxborough is watching this one like a hawk because they, again, they're demanding the A and B budget. That's where they're at. So the clarity for us is likely to come sooner than it might otherwise because they have to get ready for Boxborough town meeting.
I think this is a good segue to maybe talk about the ALG model because it impacts the school numbers that we got this afternoon. So I'm going to just go back. I just updated one slide. So this is the top of the schedule is the ALG model for revenue. And then I have the expenses by the three kind of buckets as presented in the ALG model. And as a reminder, what I've done here to get my variance to targeted is I've taken the percentage that each of these entities, Minuteman, town and school, have historically, their percentage basically of revenue, and blowing out the expenses based on that. So when you look at it that way, it's kind of a bit of a split between the variance between town and school. So this is why, so the ALG model that the town manager has shows a balanced budget for 26 and no variances, but this is showing variances because I'm comparing it to a different baseline. As I talked about weeks ago, I want to understand the variance between what is expected for growth and what is being projected as growth and expenses. And the town manager and Peter did some work on breaking out the health insurance costs, which was a request that I had the last ALG meeting. The spreadsheet that John sent around had graphs. I've requested the actual numbers, so I have kind of done my best to grab the number off the graph, but when it's between 8 and 10 million, and the line's kind of not halfway and not, so 8.3, it could be 8.2. So, but just looking at those numbers, one of the things I did was, I'm going to bounce out of this. I think I have my spreadsheet up. I just want to show you folks what I was looking at. This is the actual spreadsheet, but I think it's down here. This is what I was looking at. Oh, I will. Yeah, just patience. Patience. I'm going to go, we're getting there. All right. This is, no, health insurance's budget. Yeah. Hold on, I'm going to go back this way. Hide. So I just did this kind of quick. So, if that you see my, I can make it even larger. 250%? All right. That's probably too big, but let me hide this. Let me get this away. Let me get this hidden, and I can make it bigger, and then I can scroll up. There we go. That's about as large as I can make it. It's too far back. No, I actually intended to start far back. Both gentlemen also went back in time to show what the health cost was of the actual expenditures for the calendar year. And what I thought was interesting is, school was running, you got 14, 14, 15, right? Town was 8, 7, 8, 8, 15, 24. Both of them had a spike, which was known, which communicated, it was a driver for the cost, it's why we had an override. But then so the town went back down to 8 and the school went back down to 15. So kind of in sync with where they were. Now, the projection, because we don't have 26 and 27 numbers yet, that they gave me, has the town at 11, and then the schools at 16 and 19 as a percentage of expenditures. So just proportionally, it feels like the health insurance is overstated in the model that they currently have. And looking at the total, so the total overstatement in 26 is about $1.9 million, and 27 is about 4.3 million in total. And breaking it down between town and school, 26, I feel like the town's overstated by $1.1 million and $1.1 million in 27, and the school is overstated by about 750 and then 3 million in 27. So why this matters is when you go back to the deck, view slideshow, and I'm going to talk to the guys, to everybody, and Ellie and everybody at ALG. I'm going to ask the same question, try to get some more color on it. But when you look at, you know what, let me show you the ALG model, I'm sorry. Let me pull this up. This is too much of an eye chart. I'm just going to say what the numbers are. So on this ALG model, in 27, so 26 there shows that we balance in 26. 27, they shows a shortfall of about $1 million. But I'm showing that I think there's an overstatement in health insurance of about $1 million. So I feel like 26 and 27 are probably, on a net basis, probably on budget. And then 28, actually no, 26, I don't have 28. So actually 26, I'm showing a favorability, an overstatement of about $1 million, and then 27, I'm showing a favorability and I think I said there was a 3-ish million range. So these 2 years, if you normalize the health insurance projection in the model to what we've experienced historically, wouldn't it be negative? And I don't know I can't see what the real projection is for 28, but since it spikes up for the schools in 27 and the town seems consistent, I mean, it's safe to guess that $3 or $4 million overstatement in 27 probably carries forward into 28, and then that $6.8 million shortfall becomes a $2 million problem, which is 2 years from now, which doesn't seem to be as bad. So I really want to drive into the health insurance projections and forecasting and budgeting for it when we have the ALG meeting on Thursday morning, because I feel like it is potentially skewing the numbers, and this is why I wanted to take this approach for the point of view where we look at the drivers and not argue over, what growth rate we should be using. Let's take the normal growth rate and see what's driving the variance is. This I think is probably a very controllable variance from a budgetary perspective. I know we can't control what the health insurance costs are, and I'm sure that everything in here is based on what consultants are telling them, and I do know factually that the medical providers are now are limiting the weight loss drugs. That should bring down pharmaceutical claims. It should. We're never given the data, even though I did ask for it, the data for the impact of pharmaceutical claims on Acton for the weight loss drugs. But so I think that like, health insurance could be normalized. I think that, what's it, what?
What does the health insurance
It's
tab?
just the graphs. And
Oh.
like, this is where I pulled it, they're just images, they're not actual graphs.
So we
I-
don't, so there's
I don't
really there's no data there that we.
I asked for the numbers today. So it's hard for me to, and they go out to 27 only. So 28 where we see the spike, I don't have the detail for that. But, so, let me go back to the deck.
Can I ask a question? Where,
You want a spreadsheet?
On the health insurance, 1 second?
All right.
Yeah, on the ALG plan.
Yep.
Nope, you just had it, the health insurance tab.
Okay,
So, by looking at that real quick, sorry, Allison. Budget versus actual on the chart on the
Sorry.
right.
I'm over-clicking.
Calm down.
I know, I get nervous.
It looks like, you budgeted, your actual is a little bit more in the 20, 21, 22, then 23 came down, right? 24, you saw the spike. 25, it came down again, right? So we over budgeted compared to the actual. 26, it looks to be trending the same way. So I think you're onto something, whereas I'm afraid 27, we're over budgeting. Again, but we just don't know what the actual is going to come in at, obviously.
Allison?
oh, I think I was going to ask the same thing. I wanted to know what your source data was.
I want to know what the actual numbers are as well. And just as just as I did this here, so the value of 1% variance in the health insurance on the town is about 400 grand. So if we miss budget and misproject on the town side, it's $400,000 a year. If we misproject by 1% on the school side, it's $750 a year. So for every percentage point, you multiply by 750, and every percentage point of town, you multiply by 400. So it adds up quickly. And that's why, so in total in 27, I have it at $4.3 million. If you just went back to the normalization, this is saying that the school should be 15% in 27, not 19, and that the town should be 8%, not 11. Now, this doesn't mean, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, this doesn't mean that the town and the school budgeted at these percentages. I'm taking their cost over the total cost and looking at it from a proportion perspective. They could have budgeted these at 15%, and other things could be spiking and skewing the numbers. But I've found in budgeting, when you see a pattern like this, this tells me that you should be at, because going from 8, 10 back to 8, 15, 17 back to 15, the percentage of the budget should be 8% for the town and 15% for the school. And I think that, even if it's not what the consultants recommend, we should see a model that shows that, so that we can see what other variances and other cost drivers are in the model that we should be focusing on. There could be something else we could dive into, but I'd hate to see us, start making financial decisions on projections that may not be accurate.
Can I ask Ellie a question? So, we have 25 actuals now on healthcare. Do we have a sense of where 26 is going? I mean, trend-wise.
So when John was here last week, and then as we presented back in August, there was a significant portion of the health insurance budget which was unexpended. And John hinted that some rebalancing would be necessary in the FY 2027 budget. So I will say that we are expecting some amount of turn back on health insurance in FY 2026, and we're looking to rebalance and correct in FY 2027.
Can we estimate 2026 at this point, at projected?
Yes, and that is something that is ongoing.
So the simplistic approach would be if we can estimate 2026, we know pretty much what the rate will increase based on Maya. For 2027, we ought to have a pretty good budget. Now, based on the 24 number, I understand how the budget-to-budget numbers got messed up, because you tend to budget off the last year, but it should be fairly straightforward at this point as to what 27 should be. Actually, when does Maya give out their rates? February?
Yes, so I believe the rates for Maya are finalized at the end of January, beginning of February.
So we're still guessing as to,
We're still working off of the best information we have at the moment.
okay.
Is this a good time to congratulate Ellie for her award?
Thank you.
And I did check online, because I was curious, how many other towns in the state had the same award. And I think there's 300 and something, 60 towns, 351 towns, and I found one other town. So that's, I want to say it was Sterling, not Sterling, it's a town, Situate, I think, Situate. Cape area. So nicely done. So I just want to, sometimes when we talk about things, when we talk about like the town bound rating, and if you check down bound ratings, all the towns have the same town bound rating. But this is an achievement to be of 2 towns in the entire state that have.
There's only 5 that have AAA bond
There is?
rating.
On Moody's, like if you look at the Moody's rating, it's different. Like everybody has the same Moody's rating.
Has the price of your rookie card gone up in the,
All right, so back to this, is there any, so my thought on this is at ALG, I'm going to speak to this, and I'll just see what Peter and John say in response to this. Sorry to buzz through, I'm just trying to get back to the one slide I was at. Yeah, so because if, let's say what I did here is 100% accurate. When you look at fiscal year 27, and you take, you take the 3 million out of the school and the million out of the town, the school gets down to like, what's that? Like just under 3 million, and the town's just under 3 million. So to like the normal run rate. So now we're getting, maybe into a number that might be more easily managed. With the shortfall. So that was the thought there. If there's any other thoughts on this, I will go on to one more topic. Go ahead.
Well, I was looking at the ALG spreadsheet earlier today, one thing I noticed, sorry, thank you. I was looking at the ALG spreadsheet earlier today, and because I listened to the select board meeting last week and heard, they were trying to get the year-over-year increase down closer to 3, and the word on the street is that the Acton assessment would be, for the schools, be going up by 4.25. So I wanted to see what was baked in. And so it looks like it was baked into FY '27, but then in FY '28, there's huge increases again. So it seems like they still have not addressed underlying issues. They're just pushing stuff out. They're just pushing the problem out. That was my observation. The ALG spreadsheet gives, some detail in the town budget, a little bit of breakdown. For the schools, though, it's just operating budget, and there's no more detail, so you can't see where they're making those changes.
Right. Well, it could be hypothetically, since the school's health, my perspective, overstatement went from 750 to 3 million in 1 year. It could double again in 28. I have no idea because I don't know what the number is that's in there. So we don't know. Go ahead.
If we want more information from the schools, we'd have to ask for it because the town maintains the ALG spreadsheet. So the ALG model, they're putting everything they want in there, but the school doesn't have a direct connection to it.
I know.
So that's part of why the information just isn't there right now.
I know we can get it, but I just saw this today, and I just did this analysis today, and this just jumped off the page for me today. So I will bring it up, and I'm sure I'll get, support and detail for it soon after, ALG. I just had one other thought for today, and where is it? I just want to go to the items that might potentially be at town meeting, if that's okay. Just because last night, it was mentioned briefly, the town HVAC replacement project. I don't know if that's something that's going to go to town meeting, if the town's going to fund it internally, or how's that's going to work, but I feel like it's something that we should be discussing. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on it, or? No?
I have a question. How is it funded? I don't recall. So let's say, I'm looking at this slide. We receive a $1 million grant. We presented a cost of $3.75 million. So let's say it's 2.75. Where does that come from? An appropriation at town meeting? It's not financed in any way?
You could have it as a part of a bonding issue with a town meeting, with other things. Could be a separate warrant article to spend free cash or whatever. David's probably be more astute at answering this one, but it was not approved last year at town meeting, so.
It would be borrowed capital.
On like a 15-year, do you know, or do you know what the terms would be?
No, my guess is that it should,
that an
Ellie might know,
question?
but usually building renovations are longer.
So is this?
My guess is a 30-year, but I don't
Would
know.
this be part of a whole building renovation or part of that? You know, I mean,
It's a very significant renovation.
yeah, because I remember we discussed last night briefly that the town, this is going to need to be renovated, and I assume that was probably part of the whole project.
Yeah, it's things that cascade from the replacement of the HVAC. So first of all, one of the biggest costs is to replace the fan coil units in every room, basically. Those are so far out of date, we can't get parts for them, and then half of them don't work right. So that's a big thing. There's a lot of mold remediation in the building where pipes have sweated and caused mold. Because the renovation is significant, we also have to upgrade certain things to code, especially for accessibility.
Yeah, and I assume that would not include the bell that is not ringing right now.
That's a separate thing, and
That's what I
we're
thought,
looking
okay.
into asking CPC for a grant for the bell, at least for design money and maybe more.
Whole project.
Well, we have to figure out the number to get the whole project.
I just have a question for you, David, and I was going to ask Dean about this last night, but I didn't. When he mentioned this, he said, well, when the town hall is, assuming that this is approved and everything, that, we'd have to find a place for staff. Why wouldn't staff just work remote? Because they work remote one day a week as it is, and that, well, yeah, but some of it you can't, you could use the Asa Parlin house that's back there for the have-to-be-in-person things that are occasional, instead of, having to spend some great amount of money to relocate all the staff.
So I'm sure quite a few staff will work remotely, but there are very significant operations where we have to be in person. The finance department has to be accessible to the public. The permitting functions have to be accessible to the public. The town clerk has to be accessible to the public. So just as examples. So we're obviously going to do it in the most economic way possible. I think right now we're assuming that we'd evacuate the building because the upgrade would go faster, but we could also move people from floor to floor.
I think finding All right, we'll get there when this becomes something official that's presented, but I just was just off the cuff, just wanted to ask the question. Like, why wouldn't we just not spend money to have people that work 1 day a week remote and then find them office space for the 4 days they're supposed to be in the office?
I'm sure that'll happen very
Yeah.
significantly. Can I just mention one quick thing about the schools?
Yeah.
I don't know if Greg missed it, but their budget Saturday is going to be Monday, the 9th. So that's a good thing to get on your calendars. Yeah, so the evening of Monday, the 9th, will be their budget Saturday. I don't know exactly what time.
It's generally all day. It starts.
No, not on a Monday, it's not. So I think, my guess is that they've been starting at 6:30 recently, so I would, if you have to pencil something in, I would pencil in 6:30.
That'd be February 9th?
Yes, February 9th.
Is
And the.
January 9th's a Friday, so that's why I said that. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to just go ahead.
Just to tie a bow on the conversation about HVAC, I just want to put in a plug for the capital improvement plan, which was published in November, which has significant information about not only the HVAC project and any other proposed projects for town meeting, but the HVAC and emergency power replacement project is being proposed as a borrowing project with a borrowing term of 30 years.
Thank you. Is there any other items, like liaison items or any other items that people want to discuss? And then I have one question after that. No. Steve?
Did we do the point of view? I missed it.
I think after ALG, we can touch on that at the next meeting, because one of the slides I clearly updated, but I need to have it validated, on what I did. All right. All right. I think I'll leave. All right. I'm out of topics for this public forum. Yeah, next meeting is, I have it as December 23rd. If you don't like the date, you can complain to Jason, because that's what he's scheduled. I am not working that day.
I am not available that night.
We're waiting on the schools, right? And it sounds like if we meet on the 13th, that we will be, we'll have information about what just happened. And then we can kind of formalize our thoughts there. So I'm thinking the 13th, is that a Tuesday? Let me just make sure it's a Tuesday. Do we have agreement to just skip the second December meeting and go straight to 2026? We had our DPW discussion. We're waiting on the schools.
We're meeting on Saturday on the 17th.
That's got to be a typo. That's probably supposed to be 27. Let's assume that's 27.
It should be 27.
Yeah. All right. So. Any other motions?
Move to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Aye. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you. And all in favor to adjourn? Aye.